Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question? You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. Life is unfair.
Hey everybody, Alex the Critic here, and welcome to the latest episode of Cancerous Commentaries, the series where I rip apart stupid videos that I found on the internet. Today's victim is a thankfully short video titled, "Is Wokeness Ruining Media?" Before we get started, I've of course got to set up the context behind my discovery of this video. The creator of this wonderful little essay is a media reviewer named A Little Reviewer. I had no idea who this guy was before now, because contrary to what my detractors may say, I do not spend all of my free time trolling the internet for leftist videos to respond to. In fact, I tend to stay away from leftist creators to spare my own sanity. So, how did I come across this video, you ask? Well, a fellow media reviewer named Kinoflex, great guy by the way, you guys should check out his stuff, reposted a link to a video he made recently, which was a response to call-ins centered around his defense of AI. Because I personally don't care for either side of the AI debate, but this guy's art style and channel branding was pretty inviting, I decided to scour through his channel for something else of his to watch. That's when I came across this absolute gem, and once I saw the word wokeness in quotation marks, I knew I was in for a stupid take. Unfortunately, my gut instincts were right. So Kinoflex, if you're watching this video, let me just say this. I know you hate Colin, but getting the opportunity to dunk on him should not be enough justification to elevate morons like this. It's time to start vetting who you platform, alright buddy? That was a joke, Kinoflex is a grown-ass man. He can repost whoever the hell he wants. And just because he reposted one guy's video doesn't mean that he agrees with everything the guy says. Nevertheless, all of the pain that I'm about to go through is technically Kinoflex's fault, so if he is watching this video, then I expect some form of compensation after I'm done here. Anyways, enough dicking around. Let's get into the video.
Wokeness is ruining media, said actual brain-dead people.
I'm not sure you want to go around calling other people brain-dead when you slur your words like a retard. If somebody asked me to do an impression of a stereotypical mentally disabled person, I'd talk like this.
It's 2025 and I'm still seeing folks complain about wokeness in TV shows, cartoon, animes, and video games. Like, can we let it rest already?
Yeah, it's a little hard to take an insult like brain dead seriously when you sound like the kind of person who needs to trace their finger along the words of their script in order to record it.
Like, talk to me nice, my nigga. What exactly are you mad about? Oh my god, they're not only just adding one gay character, they're adding two. This stuff should never be in a kid's show. I don't want this liberal DI agenda affecting them. Gang, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, but please shut the fuck up. You are crying about a non-existent issue.
Ah yes, the shut up and ignore reality argument. Clearly this is a sign that we're dealing with a high-level arguer here.
I know why. The dude in the back knows why, but you don't. And if you don't know why, I guess you got some soul searching to do.
Listen nigga, I'm not here for your lame comedy routine. Just get to the point.
But what exactly am I talking about? Everything. I'm talking about everything. Race representation, race swapping, gender swapping, shows with LGBTQ themes, all that good stuff. These are all nuanced issues that need their own videos. Even now I'm working on this channel actually, so stay tuned for that.
Oh god, you're telling me that there are more stupid videos that I'm gonna have to respond to in the future? That's just great. As if I don't already have enough on my plate.
But before we continue, what does it mean to be woke? Woke is one of those words that got horribly bastardized because of brain-rotted political discussions.
He's kinda got a point there. That's why, to avoid running into this exact problem, I provided my own definition of the word woke many moons ago, which I will play for you guys right now.
Woke is anything which pushes a far-left ideology at the expense of the well-being of general consumers and/or people. And as for what far-left ideologies means, it's anything which seeks to destroy or displace accepted cultural and/or political norms. You know, capitalism, biological differences, sexual boundaries, things of that nature.
Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a succinct and understandable definition that mostly lines up with how people on both sides of the political aisle use the word woke. Surely this fine gentleman won't contribute to the very problem that he is currently complaining about by trying to ascribe a defunct definition to the word, right? Just play the clip.
Always some anti-woke dude talking about wokeness, never the woke folks themselves.
And that's a problem. Why? Seriously, what does that even mean? Anti-woke people only discuss the ideas. They never discuss the people behind the ideas. Alright, if my position is that I'm against rape, is my position invalid just because I haven't talked about specific rapists?
But what does that really mean? Defined by Merriam-Webster.
I'm sorry, what the fuck did he just say?
Defined by Merriam-Webster. Defined by Merriam-Webster. Defined by Merriam-Webster.
Listen, I know that I don't pronounce words perfectly all of the time, but at least with me, I have the presence of mind to record more than one take for my lines, and I speak clearly enough to where you don't have to constantly rewind my videos to understand what the fuck I just said. After listening to this part of the video dozens of times over, I figured out that what ALR is saying is defined by Merriam-Webster as. I have no idea why this nigga didn't re-record the line. There is no way that he heard that in the editing room and thought to himself, yep, this sounds comprehensible. Anyhow, let's finish hearing out his point.
Woke is being aware or actively insensitive to important societal facts, issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. So within this given definition, why do people use it like it's a slur?
Probably because that's not what people mean anymore when they use the word woke, retard.
Yes, woke originally meant being conscious of the unjust power structures you live under. But as with many words, it adopted a new definition, which Merriam-Webster puts thusly: politically liberal or progressive, as in matters of racial and social injustice, especially in a way that is considered unreasonable or extreme. For the love of God, Merriam-Webster even has an entire article going over the history of the word and how it's since taken on a new meaning, which I'll link in the description below for those of you who are curious about it. Kinda interesting how you completely ignored all of this and instead ran with the first definition they listed, isn't it? A charitable man would say you made an honest mistake here. However, I just think you're a retard.
This word has been given such a bad connotation by those people, and because of that, it lost its real meaning.
First of all, the connotations would only be bad if you disagreed with the position that progressive values have no place in our society. Second of all, disagreeing with the current definition of a word does not mean that that definition is less real than the original one. That would be the case if we were talking about words that are meant to describe material reality, like man and woman, but we're talking about immaterial concepts here, and those change all the time. So no, the original meaning is not lost. It's just been supplanted by a new meaning.
Based on the rightful meaning of the word, what's wrong with something being woke?
Well, even if we go by your definition, it would really depend on what kind of power structures are being critiqued. If a piece of media says, patriarchy bad, nationalism bad, in fact, all forms of hierarchy are bad, and their arguments are terrible, then obviously I'm going to push back against them, because I think each of those things are a net positive for society, and I have the right to defend my views.
Let's get real. If I were to apply for a job and the employer makes it clear that they don't want to hire me because I'm black, and I told you, the viewer, and you respond with, whoa, that's messed up.
What does that have to do with me not wanting to see gay shit in my cartoons?
Everyone has their own problems. Just because you can't succeed doesn't mean it's our problem.
Technically, Charlie Kirk is right. You could just work for another company that doesn't hate black people, or if you really want to say, screw the freedom of association, you could just file a discrimination suit against this company. Ultimately, it's on you to find employment, nigga. You're not gonna get any reparations from me.
But for real, let's be honest and look at the current political state of America right now. I'm not saying you can't be a proud American. You can red, white, and blue. What I'm saying is that we don't live in a perfect country.
Okay, I agree with you, but what does this have to do with me not wanting to see gay shit in my cartoons?
There are system and social discrimination happening right now, both racially and on a gender-specific level.
Yeah, whites and Asians are being discriminated against by certain institutions, and women are being forced to allow men who think they're women to use the same bathrooms and changing rooms as them, so technically you're right, but doesn't this just strengthen my argument that we ought to push back against this progressive shit?
So it is in our best interest to be aware of these issues for the betterment of everybody.
He says as he's writing off all of the people who are taking issue with progressive shit being in their media.
You can overcome any issue, whether it's systemic or social.
Why are you using Charlie Kirk for your straw man when the voice sounds way more like Donald Trump?
Anyways, look, I'm not trying to go back and forth on this topic. I know what I know, and what I know is that we do have systematic and social barriers that are objectively making it harder for marginalized groups to overcome their differences.
Haven't we been over this? I get it. America isn't perfect. Either bring up a new talking point or start building on your premise.
Literally because this country is built upon racist ideologies.
Ah yes, racist ideologies like the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, and the freedom to peaceably assemble. Truly, nothing says racist like decreeing that your subjects have the right to worship whatever religion they want.
If you disagree, you don't know anything about the transatlantic slave system.
First of all, the transatlantic slave trade was originally started by Africans who willingly sold each other off to European colonizers. So does this mean that we have to oppose and tear down black power structures? Second off, the transatlantic slave trade was ended by the very same white people that you are currently trying to condemn. So how about we give them a little fucking credit, huh? Third off, white people were also victimized by the transatlantic slave trade. Just look up the Barbary Pirates. Fourth off, if America really is a terrible place that did horrible things to your ancestors and continues to do horrible things to you, then why would you ever try to argue that it is okay to be proud to be American, as you just did a few minutes ago?
I'm not saying you can't be a proud American. You can red, white, and blue.
I don't know about y'all, but if I thought that the country I lived in hated me for existing and wanted to destroy my life at every turn, I certainly wouldn't be proud of it. I'd either be trying to start a revolution or I'd be getting the fuck out of there. Fifth off, what does any of this have to do with me not wanting to see gay shit in my cartoons?
Listen, slavery lasted 250 years, segregation only ended 61 years ago. I have met people who remember using a white-only bathroom.
Like, are we gonna get to the main point anytime soon? I thought this video was supposed to answer whether or not wokeness was ruining media. Why do you keep going on and on about slavery and segregation?
They really want you to believe that this point of America is just ancient history. No, these are recently happening events, at least in a historical sense.
First off, what the fuck does "these are recently happening events in a historical sense" even mean? Second of all, who are the conservatives denying that slavery and segregation happened a long time ago? Third of all, where are black people being forced to drink from different water fountains or sit at the back of the bus? I'm sorry, but niggas saying we don't want the Human Torch to be turned black are not trying to keep black people out of cinema. They simply want Hollywood writers to respect the source material.
The reality is that 250 years of slavery plus 60 years of segregation against a certain demographic of people will of course do a lot of social damage to a society.
Oh my god, I get it! Slavery bad! Do you really gotta drag this point out for 2 fucking minutes?
So what's so wrong with our media using this to convey a message of an important, meaningful meaning?
Yeah, except that modern media isn't focused on pushing messages like slavery bad. It's instead focused on pushing degenerate and harmful ideologies on our society, like transgenderism. These are 2 different things, so either make an argument as to why I should be okay with seeing gay shit in my cartoons, or shut the fuck up.
Consumers just want to see good stories and entertainment without a political agenda.
Well, it doesn't have to lack a political agenda. I'm perfectly fine with stories pushing politics so long as they're A, well written, B, don't push the politics down my throat, and C, are politics that I agree with.
Everything is political. Me drinking water is political. Me jerking off is political. Everything is political to society. Because why? Because society is inherently political.
Okay, you cannot say that everything is political and then get mad at other niggas for not wanting to see certain political messaging in their media. From our perspective, everything is political, and therefore, we want to push back against movies, shows, and books that push political messaging that we think is abhorrent. What's the actual issue there?
And by the way, you people wanting media to be less woke is also political.
Yes, I know. Are you gonna make an actual argument now, or are you just gonna keep rambling like a madman?
I'm going to get this off my chest. A show being woke doesn't make it a bad show. A bad show is bad because it's just bad.
That's true. A show being woke doesn't necessarily make it bad on its own, but it will make a show less enjoyable to those who disagree with that sort of messaging. And I've yet to hear an actual argument as to why we ought not be allowed to push back against that sort of messaging. Also, that rule isn't an absolute. There are plenty of shows out there that are bad because they're woke. See my retrospective of Magical Girl Friendship Squad for evidence of that.
Look at HBO Max's Velma. I completely despise Velma. I made a whole deep dive here on the channel about it. Out of all the criticisms I had for Velma, I will never say to make it better, every main character had to be the original race.
I agree, the characters being the races that they're supposed to be wouldn't have made the show that much better, but there being other problems in the show that are much worse than the race swapping doesn't mean that said race swapping is A, not woke, and B, totally fine. Like, I'm still waiting for an argument here, buddy. These are all just declarative statements.
Because in actuality, that doesn't solve anything about the show's problems.
Well, that would solve the whole Mindy Kaling only made this show as a shallow vanity project talking point, so there's that.
If we take what Velma is as a character within her show and just make her white, the problem still lingers.
Again, just because the race swapping isn't the biggest problem in the series doesn't mean that it's no longer a problem. Hell, people hated this show's version of Fred too, even though he stayed white. Do you seriously think that people would like his character more if they turned him black? No, they would obviously hate him more.
If you are hyper fixated on her race, you're the problem. That's a deeper issue.
Yeah, man. My deeper issue is that I don't like it when adaptations of established properties disrespect the source material by needlessly race swapping a few characters in order to pander to minority groups while constantly putting down the few white characters on the show. If you take issue with what I'm saying, then provide a counter. Simply saying, well, I think you're the problem, Chud, does not refute my point.
All about her personality, her dynamics, nothing that has to do with race.
That's not necessarily true. Race does play a part in your social interactions. Unless you mean to tell me that if a black man wanders into a Ku Klux Klan meeting, they're gonna be welcomed in with open arms. Should race be the only thing about you that people care about? No, but it is going to play a part in how you are perceived by others. Hate crimes as a concept would not be a thing if it didn't.
If you really think it does, stay a fucking clown.
Man, I sure wish I could dismiss all of my opponents by simply labeling them clowns. The world would be a much better place.
There are so many popular shows, but by your standard is nothing more just DI bullshit.
Yeah, and your point is?
Look at The Boys, a political commentary on capitalism within America, by using superheroes as a device to tell their stories.
Oh man, you could not have picked a worse example for this point, because plenty of right-wing and or centrist reviewers have torn this show apart over the years, with a lot of criticism being directed at its poor handling of its political messages. This would be like me saying, so what, you guys think Steven Universe is woke too?
I loved using The Boys as a prime example of why race swapping can actually work. You take a look at the cast members in the original source material, they race swapped every fucking character, gender swapped damn near everyone, and changed the integral part of the source material in the name of spreading wokeness.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why the show sucks. Alright, Season 1 was okay, but after that point, the series nosedived in quality, primarily because of the wokeness that ALR is currently defending. If you want specifics on this, then go and watch Big Bungie's 2 videos on it, because they are the definitive takedowns of that show as far as I'm concerned. But even if I were to grant you this point, this still isn't a defeater for my position. Why am I not allowed to criticize political messaging that I disagree with just because it's in a show that's well written and or popular? It doesn't make any sense.
And it worked. The show is so in your face with their leftist propaganda that their whole last season was about Homelander using the dumb idiot conservative party to boost his control over America.
Once again, even if I agreed that the show was awesome, why does that mean that I am no longer allowed to critique its political messaging? Like, imagine if I made a cartoon that had a gripping story, relatable characters, rich world building, and a killer soundtrack. But the overarching message of it was, racism is good and blacks need to be enslaved again. Are you really going to tell me that my show's political messaging wouldn't hinder your enjoyment of it as a black man, and you therefore wouldn't call it out? Really?
Let's take a look at another Amazon product, Invincible. They made Mark Grayson Asian for no fucking reason, and I love it.
No. I'm not letting that one go. While I haven't read much of the Invincible comics, I do know that Mark's ethnicity was never explicitly stated in them. His dad is an alien, and his mother looked like this. So to say that the showrunners of the cartoon turned him Asian out of nowhere and for no reason is disingenuous.
He was literally called a token Asian person within its own show.
Their game.
I know. I'm impressed.
Well. It's my old friends, token diversity and gender stereotype.
Okay, and this proves what exactly? They called him a token in the show, so this means he must have been white in the comics originally. What kind of stupid-ass logic is that?
Now look how popular Invincible really is. Look how popular Mark is as an Asian superhero.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Fuck all that. Let's compare Mark against other established superheroes like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. It's not crazy to say that he's just as popular as them right now.
Alright dude, calm down. Invincible is popular, but he's not that popular. Hell, a lot of people didn't even know who he was until the cartoon came out, and not a lot of people are talking about it anymore. Sure, there's a few video essayists making videos about specific aspects of the show, but it has long since stopped being culturally relevant.
There's probably some Asian kid looking at Mark the same way that black kids look at Black Panther, and that's a wonderful thing. Is that not a good thing?
Okay, who are the conservatives saying that these characters shouldn't exist? Up until very recently, nobody had a problem with the Black Panther. People only started to have a problem with him once writers started using him to push leftist messaging. This is ignoring the fact that you can easily look up and relate to characters who don't share the same skin color as you. I mean, you said earlier that skin color doesn't matter and has no influence on your personality or character.
Out of all the criticisms I had for Velma, I will never say to make it better, every main character had to be the original race. Because in actuality, that doesn't solve anything about the show's problems. If we take what Velma is as a character within her show and just make her white, the problem still lingers. If you are hyper fixated on her race, you're the problem. That's a deeper issue. What about her personality, her dynamics? Nothing that has to do with race. And if you really think it does, stay a fucking clown.
So why should there be more Asian or black representation? If the character is well written and admirable, then it shouldn't matter what his skin color is, right? Aren't these kids being racist by your own logic because they're gravitating to these characters solely due to their skin color?
But you guys are taking away from us white. What about our white kids? Who should look up to?
First off, you guys are literally overrepresented in media.
Yeah, that's because, and I don't know if you know this, ALR, but white people make up the majority of our population. That's why they have the most representation in our media. This is like complaining that Nigerians are overly represented in Nigerian media, and that we therefore need to take Nigerian characters and turn them white so that the marginalized white minority groups can feel properly represented.
And at the moment a few characters get race swapped, especially ones whose identity aren't even tied to their race, you cry about it on Twitter.
Yeah, like all of these other examples that I'm not listing. And wait a goddamn minute, you're crying your ass off in this video right now! You can't be calling us the brain-dead losers when you're complaining about other people complaining.
And also, what does it mean to have characters whose identities aren't tied to their race? I mean, you just got done explaining to us that it's good to have admirable characters of different races in our media so that viewers who share the same race can look up to them and feel represented.
There's probably some Asian kid looking at Mark the same way that black kids look at Black Panther, and that's a wonderful thing. Is that not a good thing?
If that's the case, this implies that a character's identity, and by extension the viewer's identity, is tied, at least in part, to their race, and thus it does matter what their race is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making an argument that relies on race mattering to the viewers.
Oops.
There doesn't have to be this deep justification on why a character's race swapped.
And you're going to contradict yourself in 3, 2, 1.
The goal of providing proper representation is enough. It'll always be enough.
Dude, did you even look over your own script? You just applied a deep justification to a practice that you just got done claiming doesn't have one.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
By the way, lazy race swaps will never count as proper representation. Sorry nigga, I ain't buying that.
Yeah, but what about gay people?
Yeah, that transition really needed to be 15 seconds long, man. The pacing of the video would have been utterly destroyed if it had been any shorter.
Look, I'm not gay, but I do feel comfortable saying that gay people or any other person identifying under the LGBTQ+ community deserve to be represented within our media.
And you are gonna provide an argument for why that should be the case, aren't you? Also, by qualifying that he himself isn't gay, ALR is making the implication that gay people are the only ones allowed to argue for their own self-interests. Like, how do you expect gay people to achieve legal equality if you have to be gay before you can advocate for their rights?
Like, is it really a big deal that there's some LGBTQ themes within our shows? Is that really problematic?
Yes, because homosexuality is sexually degenerate, and I don't want kids to be shown such things.
The reality is that they do exist. There's nothing you can do about it.
So, pedophiles exist too. Should we start putting pedophiles in cartoons?
And I believe that their existence is not inherently problematic.
Well, I don't care about what you believe, I care about what is. So either start making an argument or go back to picking cotton, cause I'm getting real sick and tired of these non-answers.
Without using any religious basis, what's the problem of a gay person existing in real life or in our TV shows?
Well, for one, homosexuality is an inherently unhealthy lifestyle that will lead to an increased risk of STDs and other physical ailments like incontinence. For two, there's the whole issue of surrogacy, where gay couples will literally pay a woman to give birth to a child that was made from one of the two men's DNA and then take it away from her, which is just a nicer form of slavery. You are literally buying humans. You would think that the guy who has been whining about slavery for 5 minutes wouldn't be supporting a practice like this. For three, homosexuality is a genetic dead end, and the more that we normalize it, the less and less human beings are going to be around. Now, I don't know about you, but I rather like my species, and I want to see it continue. I think that our existence is a net positive, don't you? There are more reasons, but I don't want to drag the video on for too long, so let's continue.
And I'm not talking only about adult shows. The way I see it, if you're comfortable enough to display a heterosexual couple on a kid's show, why not a homosexual couple?
That's simple, because one is healthy, normal, and typically not sexualized in the way that gay couples are.
Because sorry to tell you, your kids finding out gay people exist isn't gonna magically turn them gay. It's simply not how shit works.
Nah, that's pure cope, dude. By that logic, we shouldn't be having any standards for what messaging we put in children's media. If you tell a kid that rape is good, that's not gonna magically turn them into a rapist. Sorry, my nigga, but I've heard far too many horror stories of children being pulled further and further into sexual degeneracy because said degeneracy was subtly, and in some cases not so subtly, pushed upon them in children's spaces and media. So I'm dismissing this argument entirely.
Because right, most gay people have straight parents, meaning that they was probably raised with a certain idea of what love is, how it will be reciprocated between two consenting parties. So if they grew up with the idea that a heterosexual couple is the idea of love and romance, them becoming gay is a clear indicator that them seeing it is not what caused it.
Yeah, but them seeing it being celebrated in our culture is going to encourage them to embrace that sexual deviancy, which is bad for the reasons I gave earlier. And I could make this exact same argument for pedophiles. So I ask again, why haven't we been putting more pedophiles in our cartoons? Why don't we start teaching children that it's okay to be a pedophile? Oh god, that's gonna get clipped out of context, isn't it?
I graduated high school 3 years ago and I have friends from high school who are gay. I got some friends in middle school who I still talk to who are also gay, or at least not straight. And unless these motherfuckers are just conning me and this is just some big old troll campaign against me, you can be young and not straight. It's not a big deal. It's not that deep.
Okay, let's see if we can apply this sort of logic to other things. When I was a kid, I liked to set people on fire. I wasn't raised to be a pyromaniac, I just had an innate burning desire to grab a match, light it, and then set the nearest person ablaze. I don't know why you conservatives are so opposed to my behavior. Burning people alive isn't that big of a deal.
Like, I'm Catholic, but I don't hold everybody in the same regards of my religion. That's not fair. Because who the fuck am I? I'll be damned if a Muslim nigga tell me that I can't eat pork because he can't eat pork.
Alright, dude, you are a giant hypocrite because you have spent this entire video telling people not to do things that offend your sensibilities. In this case, bitching about there being gay shit in our cartoons. So either it's alright to tell people how they should live their lives, or it's not. You cannot have it both ways.
We live in a very diverse world, so why can't our entertainment reflect that?
Yeah, why shouldn't we be making media that says it's alright to be a pedophile, or a serial killer, or a rapist? In fact, why should we bother moderating children's content at all? We should just let them watch whatever the hell they want. Oh, that movie has an excessive amount of gore, profanity, and sex? Well, I'm sure that little Timmy can handle watching it. After all, the world is a very diverse place, and he'll be all the better for being exposed to all of these things at such a young age.
Gay people exist in real life, so I don't care if they exist in some kid show.
So his ultimate argument for why we should be okay with sexually degenerate shit being shown to our children is, well, gay people exist in real life. Wow, I never thought about it like that, man. Suddenly, all of my core political and social beliefs have been flipped on their head. If only everyone had your level of wisdom.
Also, phrases like, "this isn't a big deal," and "I personally don't care about this" are both an appeal to triviality, which is a strong contender for my least favorite logical fallacy. Seriously, if I had the power to ban people from committing this fallacy, I would absolutely do it, because I'm getting sick and fucking tired of hearing this nonsense being continuously trotted out. I don't care that you don't care about the stuff I'm criticizing or the arguments I'm making. Your personal indifference does not render my point moot. Please stop pretending like it does. Besides, you're lying anyways. If you really didn't care about gay shit being in our media, or about people complaining about gay shit being in our media, you wouldn't be making this video in the first place. So please shut up.
But the woke mob is trying to convert our kids with their leftist agenda.
No, it's called creating and accepting an environment for all people.
Yeah, you can phrase it in whatever kind of flowery language that you want, but you still haven't refuted Charlie's point. And for the millionth time, why aren't we doing this same thing for pedophiles and rapists?
So with creating that environment, we see an uproar of people identifying with that way of life, since they're not ashamed of being who they are. Plus, you just sound slow.
Nigga, the structure of that entire sentence made no goddamn sense. And on top of that, you slurred your words so much that you may as well have had a dick in your mouth. Yet you're calling us slow?
Now that is irony.
And even if we ignore that, you still have yet to provide an argument for how this somehow isn't a liberal agenda, or how I, as someone who opposes homosexuality, should be okay with this. If we normalize this, we're going to see an uptick in people who are openly identifying as gay, because they won't be ashamed of it anymore. Okay, and that suddenly means that being pro-gay isn't progressive, and that putting pro-gay messaging in our kids' shows isn't pushing an agenda? Connect the dots for me here, because I cannot follow your train of logic.
Think about it, a kid watches a gay character, now he's gay. I have never seen the opposite happening. Why? Because it's not true.
Well, I myself am the perfect example of the opposite happening. I was exposed to tons of pro-gay propaganda while I was growing up. King of the Hill was, and still is, one of my favorite shows of all time, and it had an entire subplot about Dale learning that his father is gay and that he should accept him for who he is. Yet guess what? I grew up to be anti-gay anyways. That aside, I haven't personally seen this happen is not a valid line of reasoning. I haven't personally been raped, nor have I seen anybody be raped. Does this suddenly mean that rape is a good thing?
Most of my gang fuck with Steven Universe, a show about literal lesbian space rocks, but most of my niggas are straight.
Okay, I get it. Not everybody who watches pro-gay propaganda is going to become gay themselves. That's not the point. The point is that this sort of messaging is going to normalize homosexuality and thus lead it to proliferating throughout our society, which is bad. Besides, didn't you just get done saying that this sort of messaging is going to push gay kids into being open about their sexual orientation?
But the woke mob is trying to convert our kids with their leftist agenda.
No, it's called creating and accepting an environment for all people. So with creating that environment, we see an uproar of people identifying with that way of life, since they're not ashamed of being who they are.
So which is it? Do these shows have no effect on how kids behave when it comes to their sexual orientation, or do they?
Look at Our House. Most people don't like the show because how loose it's bi, even though Steven Universe literally paved the way of having more LGBTQ themes within kids shows.
Okay, just because it's been done before doesn't mean that people can't still have a problem with it. By this logic, you can't get mad at white people for the transatlantic slave trade because Africans were the ones who started it.
Like, God forbid a person from their community try to create a show for their people giving good representation. That's why me personally, I can never be mad at the creators of these shows.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for an argument, nigga.
Rebecca Sugar is non-binary, and Dana Trans, sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, is bi, and both have the merit and resumes to create amazing shows. I'm going off top of my head, but Rebecca Sugar previously worked on Adventure Time, and Dana worked on Gravity Falls. So they're clearly talented, so why are niggas hating?
Because even if I were to grant that these people are talented storytellers who are able to use their talents to subtly push leftist messaging in their cartoons, you still have not answered why I don't have the right to push back against that messaging if I disagree with it. You haven't even addressed why I'm wrong for disagreeing with it.
Because it's funny, it's always don't change our characters, make your own, but you people are still mad when they're making new characters.
Yeah, wow. It's almost as if the problem here is with the messaging of these shows, you fucking monkey. Let me call back to my Magical Girl Friendship Squad reviews for a second. Have I ever complained about Alex being black or Daisy being whatever race she's supposed to be? Of course not, because they're original characters. Therefore, I take no issue with their skin color. What I do take issue with is that the show is pro-abortion, pro-feminism, pro-communism, and pro-sexual degeneracy. Are you ever going to explain why I shouldn't take an issue with any of those messages? Or are you just gonna keep morally grandstanding me?
My last takeaway, all I gotta say is that if seeing a different character in a show or movie or video game really gets you tight, please invest in a J.O.B. my nigga.
First of all, many of the people you're complaining about criticize these shows for a living, so they already have a job. Second of all, wow, you're telling people how they should live their lives? But I thought that was a bad thing.
I'm Catholic, but I don't hold everybody in the same regards of my religion. That's not fair. Because who the fuck am I? I'll be damned if a Muslim nigga tell me that I can't eat pork because he can't eat pork.
Third of all, I'll get a job as soon as you agree to go to speech therapy. The rest of the video is just ALR thanking somebody else for providing the voice for Charlie Kirk and then signing off, which means that I can skip all of that and head straight to my final thoughts.
If there's one thing that I'm absolutely tired of when it comes to leftists, it's their refusal to make an actual argument. Most of ALR's video just consisted of him throwing out declarative statement after declarative statement, while repeating his nonsense over and over again, and going on long-ass tangents about utterly irrelevant topics. Even when he did get back on track, the two arguments he made were utter weak sauce. Listen, slavery and segregation happened, and also, gay people exist, yo, so you have to let us push our worldview through the media without any sort of pushback. Like, I know that this video was supposed to be a more general summary of ALR's takes about these various culture war issues, but don't you think he'd want to save his strongest arguments for a catch-all video like this? Imagine if I made a video called, "Here's Why You Should Believe in God," and I spent most of the time going on and on about how the Roman Empire persecuted Christians for centuries, and pointing out that the Bible exists and is a real thing. Therefore God is real, and if you disagree, that means you're evil. And no, I'm not gonna bother explaining why I think that makes you evil, it just does. That's essentially what ALR's video was. Really, the best thing I can say about it is that it was short. If you're gonna bombard me with leftist nonsense, I'll be a lot more forgiving if you can do it in the amount of time that it takes for me to take a shit.
Now, this would normally be the point where I give you guys advice on how not to make videos that are this stupid, but I don't feel like it. I'm Alex the Critic, and I'll see you guys next time.